Oh, hey, what's happening, wrestling fans? This is a Thursday night show. Kevin, it's Thursday night.
It is Thursday night, but we have so much wrestling this weekend. We got Saturday night's main event on Saturday. On Sunday, our normal night when we're live, we have NXT Battleground, as well as opposite that, Double or Nothing, which is our main event topic tonight, discussing Double or Nothing and giving our predictions. But because we have so much wrestling, Doug, we had to do this show early to get people ready for the weekend.
Yes, because isn't there wrestling tonight now?
There is, which is why we are on at 7 o'clock. So we will make sure that we are done in time for Collision.
Oh,
And in order to do that, let's just get right to it by starting
let's
with
do it.
our opening bell. We're going to begin this week's show with a follow-up to our main story from last week, and that is the sad passing of Sabu. And some unfortunate timing. An interview with Joey Janela was published the day after we were on the air, so the day after Sabu's death. And even though the interview itself was done weeks ago, that timing of being after Sabu's death did not age very well because the interview sparked controversy. As in it, Janela talks about being the opponent for Sabu's retirement match during WrestleMania weekend. In the interview, Janela recounts that the day of the match, he hears from Sabu's team saying that Sabu is not coming, that he was going to no-show his own retirement match because he could not walk. Said his knees were locked up, his feet were bleeding, which obviously that's not ever a good sign. He then said that Sabu was not only able to make it to his retirement match, but he was able to do so because his team gave him something called kratom. Doug, I am not familiar.
Kratom? Yeah.
It's apparently a herbal medicine that is a bit controversial because, well, it's used for a variety of things, including, opioid withdrawal. But the medicine is not researched. It is not regulated. And then in this interview, Janela says that because of this, Sabu shows up basically bouncing off the ceilings high as a kite. He further goes on to talk about the match itself, explaining in one violent spot that Sabu was knocked out and concussed, but got up and still kept going. So I say all that to say, obviously, the interview has not aged well considering everything that happened. And because of what Janela says in this interview, it's caused him to have to backtrack. It's caused people coming at him claiming that they were responsible for Sabu's death. GCW, the promotion under which banner this retirement match took place, also had to come out because they were, catching some of the blame. Basically, Janela has since retracted some of his statements, saying that Sabu wasn't actually concussed. He was only saying that to try to add to the aura and legacy of Sabu's final match. I can get that. I can understand. It's wrestling. That makes sense to working. More troublesome to me, anyways, is the talk of substances and Sabu being high and maybe not fit to even be performing and yet obligated to go perform anyway. To that end, GCW did basically come out and say that they would never knowingly put anyone in the ring who was a danger to themselves or others. It should be noted that after the retirement match, though, Sabu did make all of his other WrestleCon appearances. So all throughout the weekend of WrestleMania, he was around. It wasn't like he had this match and it went so poorly that he, was unavailable and went off and died, which is kind of the way that all this is making it sound. Just some ugliness, really. And it's a sad situation, obviously, to lose a legend. But I guess maybe for now, we'll just wait and see. No cause of death has yet been revealed.
Right.
If there's anything in that autopsy and that death certificate that would possibly indict any of those involved in the retirement match, we'll probably be revisiting this in a litigious way.
Yeah.
Doug, more unfortunate news. Unfortunately, we have to report on this, and it's another tragic situation, but beloved legendary announcer Jim Ross, who's already had just, a rough go of it in his life health-wise, especially the last few years, which obviously has pretty much taken him off our televisions. He announced this week that he was diagnosed with colon cancer. Surgery is scheduled to happen in the next few weeks. No word on a prognosis or recovery time, but our thoughts and prayers, obviously, with good old JR as he goes through this.
Yep.
Let's move to something pleasant. How about happier topics?
Can we do that, please?
Let's do some congratulations in order for Darby Allin. We recently reported on his progress climbing Mount Everest, and then earlier this week, Darby accomplished his lifelong dream of reaching Everest's imposing summit. While at the summit, Darby made good on his promise to plant an AEW flag. If you've not seen the photos, congrats certainly are in order, but cautiously so. He's not out of the woods. We just want to wish him safe travels on his descent. Descending is obviously faster than ascending, but can be just as perilous, as half of the deaths that have occurred on Everest this year have occurred on the descent. So a big accomplishment, obviously a lifelong dream for Allin. Now he's just got to get off that mountain safely.
That is crazy.
Isn't it though? If anyone is meant for crazy accomplishments, it's Darby Allin.
It's that kid. Yeah, absolutely.
More congrats. This one to Sonya Deville. Obviously, Sonya was recently, she wasn't let go. WWE actually let her contract expire. She wasn't renewed, which was shocking to her, but she has already moved to her next phase, and that is a return to MMA. Not as a competitor this time, but as a color analyst. Specifically, she's been working for Invicta FC, and then this past weekend, she worked the Invicta FC 62 as part of a historic all-female panel. So congrats to Daria Baronetto, real name, Sonya Deville. It's been nearly 3 years since WWE pulled the plug on NXT UK, with the promise of NXT Europe taking its place. You'd be forgiven if you had forgotten that or thought that WWE perhaps. WWE seemed like they forgot it, right? Because, 3 years. But behind the scenes this week, there has started to become some clatter around the fact that NXT Europe may be closer than any of us
Really?
have. Yes. Apparently been working hard behind the scenes. Now, I don't know if this is a lot to do with the fact that they obviously have a new purchase in Latin America, and then maybe all of this is their global strategy starting to fall into place, so they're wanting to strike while the iron is hot. But this NXT spinoff is supposedly going to be up and running before we turn the calendar again. So before we get to the end of 2025, we may be watching NXT Europe, which seems like that would be awfully soon, considering they've made no official announcements. But for the wrestling scene in Europe, let's hope that that is true.
That's cool. I need more wrestling to watch through the week.
I really liked the NXT UK product and hated when it went away. And you can really look, though, and see, whether it's in WWE with Rhea Ripley or outside of WWE with like a Tony Storm, there is a lot of talent that came through that NXT UK scene, Axiom or Fraxium right now on the main brand. Like some really great talents went through the NXT UK, and hopefully we will see something similar with an NXT Europe sooner rather than later.
Cool.
While on the topic of NXT, let's talk about something maybe not as pleasant for them, and that is the fact that we got some change of venue coming up. So WWE, as you know, is having a residency in Tampa this weekend, but what was once scheduled to be 4 shows is now 3. That no longer includes Tuesday's NXT on the CW. So Memorial Day weekend takeover of Tampa at the Yuengling Center will now only include Saturday night's main event, and then NXT Battleground on Sunday, and then Raw on Monday. NXT's Tuesday broadcast has been moved back to the Performance Center after the Yuengling Center sold less than 2,000 tickets to a 10,000 seat venue. I have to think that there's got to be the sticker shock of, if you're going to do 4 nights, that last night, which is
Yeah.
always going to be that Tuesday NXT show, which has stars that maybe not everyone is familiar with. That is, if you're going to make a choice as to what you aren't going to see, you're probably going to miss the last one because one, the money runs out. Two, if you've already wanted to see NXT, you've saw the pay-per-view,
Yep.
which is going to be the big show this weekend on Sunday. But yeah, that's pretty damning, honestly, to not move 2,000 tickets for a 10,000 seat building. Probably a good move to not have that embarrassment air. Looking
Yes.
like that.
Agreed.
So big news for the NWA and WOW, Women of Wrestling, and that is that Paramount will soon be launching the Wrestling Central, an all wrestling fast channel on the free ad-supported The Roku channel. So this channel will feature shows. Obviously, it's a 24/7 wrestling channel, but primarily it will be filled with NWA and WOW classics, new content, specials, documentaries, fresh matches supposedly every week. I'll be interested to see whether or not the NWA chooses to run their most recent power broadcast, which would be great because that would put it in front of more people. It'll also be interesting to see if the NWA stuff is all from the Billy Corgan era or if it'll include the NWA territories from the past, as Billy does actually own some of those libraries that were not previously snatched up by WWE. So I know he has things like St. Louis, the old, I think he has the old Tully Blanchard's dad. I can't remember his father's name, but he ran the territory in Texas, a West Texas territory. So there's several libraries of the NWA that
cool.
Billy owns. Would be kind of cool to see that stuff again. But regardless, Doug, you wanted more wrestling. There it is, 24/7 for you.
There's more wrestling. Wow.
More wrestling. And then we will end our opening bell segment with a injury update. So during the three-way match that we saw this week on Raw between Rhea Ripley, Kairi Sane, and Zoe Stark to see who would qualify for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, Stark came up short on a springboard drop kick and suffered a gruesome-looking knee injury that had her howling in pain, caused the ref to abruptly pause the match while medics tended to Stark. The plan apparently had originally been for Rhea to win anyway, but she was going to pin Stark, and that was how she was moved on to Money in the Bank. But because Stark had to be removed from the match mid-match, Rhea had to get the fall on Sane, which of course isn't ideal considering this was actually Sane's return match to television. But you sometimes have to do what you have to do on live TV. Even though WWE has yet to make an official announcement as to Stark's injury, she has had a previous serious knee injury before. Stark took her own social media to say that she was appreciative of everyone asking, but that as bad as her knee hurts, what hurt worse was knowing that it was going to be a while before she was able to do this again. So she didn't exactly give the details as to the nature of the injury, how long she'll be out, when surgery is going to be, all that, but it sounds like it's as bad as it looked. Did you see this on Monday?
I haven't seen Raw, but I have seen some replays on some of the YouTube wrestling channels of this, and it looks terrible. Just the way she lands it. I've seen it played in slow motion, and it's like the leg buckles. It's like every L in her knee is probably torn, and if it's not that, it's amazing that it's not.
And let's give credit where it's due. These men and women that go out there and put their health on the line for our entertainment, they are tough as nails. And so to have an injury so bad that they're actually screaming in pain, that was uncomfortable to actually watch and listen to. That doesn't happen very often. Even in the case of an injury, I can't remember too many instances where during a match you could hear the injured wrestler actually crying out like she was suffering. It was actually the look on Rhea Ripley's face of trying to maintain character, being concerned for your friend, not knowing what to do. It was just it brought the whole broadcast to a halt.
Wow.
So definitely, Zoe, we hope to see you back in the ring sooner rather than later, and quick recovery and a good surgery, and hang in there. That was a very tough one.
Absolutely. Wow. Before you jump to the main event, Kevin, this popped up on my phone a few stories ago. Have you heard about WrestleMania 42?
Tell me, what do we have?
WWE has officially canceled WrestleMania 42 in New Orleans, which was scheduled for 2026. Instead, New Orleans will host a smaller Money in the Bank event that year, with WrestleMania expected to be rescheduled for a future date in another city, reportedly Las Vegas.
What?
The decision surprised many within the WWE and the wrestling community as New Orleans was announced as the host earlier in 2025. The change is attributed to a new significant bid and other issues with current leadership showing flexibility to pivot plans for greater revenue. New
Wow.
Orleans is still expected to host a future WrestleMania as part of an ongoing partnership with WWE and related organizations. So it popped up, and I just did a quick Perplexity feed, and I've got 8 different references from Perplexity. So,
hey, who's got your back with breaking news? The Two Bros Wrestling Show here, breaking news about WrestleMania.
right?
Wow, I have to take that in because that actually one, it's
Yeah.
terrible to make that kind of announcement and then retract. And it was it was John Cena or The Rock. It was The Rock that made the announcement, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't the first time that Vegas has snatched up, went in and snatched up because wasn't this year's WrestleMania originally headed towards Minneapolis, and then they pivoted to give it to Vegas instead. And so we got Minneapolis up next. So Vegas is taking everybody's lunch.
Significant bid. There's got to be some sort of language in the contract that, if a significant bid does come in, they have, I guess, what, like first refusal or whatever, first rights to counter or whatever. And if they don't, then there's probably well, obviously there's a series of negotiations since New Orleans is getting it at some point in the future.
Yeah, apparently the cities are not negotiating with no backsies in the contracts.
Right. Yeah. So that's
that's
so
big.
there we go. Now on to the main event.
We will continue to follow this story as we learn more. I'm sure more will come out as there will be a lot of fallout as to the real reasons to why. We will report on that as we learn it to see what that bid and actually was in order to steal a WrestleMania away,
right?
To go back to Vegas just a few years afterwards. Very interesting.
At least it wasn't a massive bid from, the Saudi,
don't go
whatever, whatever their thing is.
Doug, let's talk Double or Nothing.
Oh yeah, Double or Nothing. Let me shift gears now and get off of this and go to Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing is taking place this Sunday night. Obviously, if you're watching live, you're pre-gaming with us before Collision. So I very much expect that there could be a match or two added to this, because even though 8 is a good size PLE for anyone, more than what WWE normally would throw out there, it's kind of light for light for Tony Khan. So we will preview what we have and predict the winners for the matches we know, and that will start with FTR, your newly minted heel version of FTR, taking on Daniel Garcia and the returning Nigel McGuinness, who wrestled what we thought was a one-off earlier this year or is that last year at this point? But
yeah.
He recently had a match with Bryan Danielson, and now he's going to be back with Daniel Garcia. I appreciate Nigel. I loved him when he was a full-time performer. He's fantastic on the mic, obviously.
Yes.
I think he will, as he showed with Daniel in a singles match, he still has it. And so I'm sure in a tag team scenario where your opponents are as talented as FTR, this will be a good match. I don't see how this isn't another L, though, for Nigel.
That's what I was just wondering. Does Nigel take the L here to get Garcia even more over? And, since he's the only not full-timer?
Yeah, I can't imagine that Nigel isn't the one who's going to be staring up at the lights. It's too early in the FTR heel run for them to look to a non-established tag team that includes a wrestler who's wrestled one match in 10 years. So this has to be FTR in my book.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of those Pat McAfee like hope spots there where it's like, well, maybe he can do it. I mean, but he was a wrestler, so maybe. Oh no, he couldn't do it. We'll see that.
Yeah, I think that they'll work hard. They'll put on a good show, but there's no universe where it makes sense to me that the booking would go against FTR.
Hmm.
This next one's a little maybe more difficult to predict in my mind, and that is the stretcher match. Everyone loves Mark Briscoe. Obviously, Mark is probably more in tune to the type of contest that would be a stretcher match as far as the violence, as opposed to a Ricochet who has a more technical high flying style.
Hmm.
Doug, how do you see this one playing out? Ricochet is definitely higher on the depth chart at this point.
Yeah. This on paper, it doesn't even work. Honestly, uh, you just look at it in a wrestling, not even in a wrestling bubble, but just it just doesn't work. But I, I'm thinking, I'm thinking Ricochet goes over
Yeah.
clumsily, but I think Ricochet goes over because he all of his flippy floppy high flyer stuff can't really work. I mean, I imagine it could to a certain degree to cause that injury to get the man on the stretcher. I don't know. I think I still say Ricochet, but clumsy.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you that Ricochet goes over, and maybe we'll be surprised by the chemistry these two have. They
Sure.
do seem like they are maybe a mishmash of styles, but both men are talented workers, so
Absolutely.
I have confidence that they can pull it together in a match that I'm not sure what. I'm not sure that the personal issues, at least what I have seen play out on television, unless it's happening on Ring of Honor, and I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah.
But does it feel like whatever they have issues, the personal issues between them has risen to the point yet of something
Yeah.
as dire as a stretcher match?
No. No. No.
Yeah, feels like we're jumping a few chapters in the book to me.
But it's sometimes Tony books hot shot. Let's just run it through.
Well, that's call a spade a spade. That is what this is a little bit of hot shot booking, because I saw that
Hmm.
there was a stipulation to it, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is there such an extreme
Yes.
stipulation this early on? But they did. We're here to predict. We're not here to book. That's
No.
Tony's job.
No. Yep, that is true.
Doug, let's
What do
talk
you got
about
next
the
here?
AEW Continental Championship contest, where our champ Kazuchika Okada is taking on the hot newcomer Speedball Mike Bailey, who I am enjoying the heck out of seeing Speedball on my TV. For so many years, I was only occasionally catching his TNA work. This will be fun.
This will be fun. I think I'm. This may be unpopular, but I'm thinking Kazuchika. Okada does the deed here and passes the torch.
Wow.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Let's get this. Let's strap a rocket to this kid's back, and this is the way to do it.
So just I want to dig into your mindset on this one. So is that as much a you think, are you going that way because of what you've seen in Mike Bailey's work, that you think it's his time, or do you think that it's time for Okada to move away from the Continental title and move up to more of a main event scene?
Honestly, both.
Both.
I think it's time for both because I think Okada's doing pretty much what his good friend Shinsuke Nakamura has done since he came to America and just kind of been slumming and enjoying life. You know, I mean, really, we've seen both these guys in New Japan and the amazing things they can do. And not to say they're still not amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing, but they're just just kind of chilling,
It feels
not
like
doing
coasting. It really
coasting.
does.
Yeah, that you don't see that strong style in these guys since they've hit America that much. And Okada is a 7-star match guy. Let's get him back. Let's get that going again.
So I like your booking. I had as my prediction being Okada in this scenario, but I would be happy to be wrong on this because, like you, I think Speedball has definitely got something that is upper mid card at this point, and this would help to put some gold around his waist. And Okada needs to do more. So
Mhm.
I like your booking. I don't predict it that way, but I hope
That's all
that
right. It's all right. It's good when we disagree. It's
it
good.
is good. It
We don't
is
want to be in
good
lockstep all
when
the
we
time.
disagree. I don't
Indeed.
think we're going to. I think we're going to be in lockstep on this next one, Doug, and
Okay.
that is
What's this?
the AEW World Tag Team Championship, where you have the champions, the Hurt Syndicate, taking on the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions in the Sons of Texas.
You know, there's a lot to be said for the longevity of Dustin Rhodes, and
Uh,
and the the talent of Sammy Guevara, but all those things that could be said about both those things cannot put them over in the Hurt Syndicate. It's not going to happen.
See, I knew we weren't going to disagree on this one. No, there's just
No.
I hate that you have your Ring of Honor champions going to be defined down by being lesser than the
Mhm.
AEW champions. Ring of Honor has an image problem in the AEW universe as being the second class citizens, which is always the problem throughout the history of wrestling. When one promoter buys another brand, whether it's WCW,
Yeah.
whether it's Mid South back in the day with the NWA, like whatever the brand is always playing second fiddle to your main product, which
Hmm.
unfortunately Tony's going to show again that Ring of Honor are the second class citizens, because there is no way that Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes are going to win this over the Hurt Syndicate, especially when the story for the Hurt Syndicate right now is whatever this is they have going on with MJF, which is not going to play out at this pay-per-view. So you have to keep
Right.
the straps on them for down the road when it all falls apart and Bobby Lashley wants to kill MJF.
Yes. Let's slow burn that. Go ahead and tease it, but let's slow burn it, Tony. Slow burn it.
That is the thing we said earlier. He likes the hot shot, so it is
Uh-huh.
possible that if the Sons of Texas have any shot at winning this, it's only going to be because once again Tony decides to skip to the end of the book and not give us the middle chapters, and
Right.
MJF somehow gets involved and costs the Hurt Syndicate right off the bat. But
Hmm.
I would argue that would not be wise.
No. You got money here. Don't burn it. Don't burn it yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Doug, I want to save the tournament. I know normally we go with the title matches at the end. I want to
Hmm.
save the tournament
That's cool.
matches and the Anarchy match for the end, because I actually think that's the way this is going to roll. I think that we'll end on
Hmm.
that Anarchy in the arena match. So let's talk about the AEW Women's World Championship with your champion, Timeless Tony Storm, taking on All Elite, because she is now not just a guest, she is All Elite
Hmm.
officially with AEW. Mina Shirakawa. Doug, I love me some Mina.
Me too. Let me
Um,
Tony too, though.
everybody loves Mina.
Hmm.
I I think this will be possibly um, quietly, sneakily, when you're not expecting it. This could be the best match on the card.
Oh yeah, it definitely has the potential with these two gals.
And
So
I think though that I know I've predicted pretty much straight retaining of championships here, but I think that it's still Tony time.
it's still Tony time. Yeah.
Do you see anybody on the horizon who you think is going to be the person who, not currently?
Mm-mm. No, I don't see it.
Maybe
Unless,
that's a.
well,
I'm gonna say
no, I don't see it.
that might be a good. Let's go ahead and transition. That's a good segue, because that
Yeah.
is what the Owen Hart tournament is about, right? Like you're not just the
Hmm.
Owen Hart champion; you're the presumed next challenger up for um, for Tony Storm. And so let's talk about the finals on the women's side of the bracket, being Jamie Hayter
Hmm.
versus Mercedes Monet. Doug, you and I were kind of, we've joked it's not hater haters, but we didn't get
Hmm.
the whole Jamie Hayter
Didn't
thing
get it.
until she proved us very, very wrong, and has been a breath of fresh air during her main event level run.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes Moné comes in to AEW with all the accolades, all the history in WWE, and now all the championships. She has teased. There's been tease spots between her and Tony. One of the reasons I'm predicting Tony to win against Mina is
Mm-hmm.
that we have to get to, we have to eventually get to
Yeah.
Tony versus Mercedes, because
Mm-hmm.
if there's one belt that Mercedes needs to complete that collection that she does not yet have, it's the main belt, and that is the AEW Women's Championship.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And unless it's Mercedes that can dethrone Tony.
So I think that because of that, Mercedes has to win the tournament.
Yeah,
Your agreement?
I am.
I We've seen Statlander versus Tony before. We've not yet seen
Yeah.
what is a big money match. And let's not forget what's on the horizon, because that does cast a shadow over everything we're talking about here. And that's AEW's biggest ever domestic show this summer.
Yep.
So if you're
And
going to watch those marquee matches, that's the marquee match right there. Is finally Mercedes Moné, after all this time in AEW. Sasha Banks is going to be in the main event.
Finally, yeah.
Against your version of that centerpiece of your promotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's the money match.
Yeah.
Doug, that same logic we can probably apply to this next match. So when we try to break down who is going to need it most in the men's Owen Hart tournament finals between Hangman Page and Will Ospreay, if we're looking at Jon Moxley as the opponent, we've seen Moxley Hangman before.
Mm-hmm.
You got your stadium show coming up. And it's been apparent for quite some time that Will Ospreay is going to eventually be the center of the AEW promotion. You could argue he already is. He just doesn't have the gold yet. So
That's just it. He is. He
that's
just
it.
doesn't have the belt.
So we have to give him the belt at some point in this hero's journey. And that journey has to go through a tournament and end up in a stadium this summer.
Mm-hmm. This summer. So we're in lockstep with this one too.
So we'll come back in summer when we do our preview of All In. But the spoiler right now is that I do think it's Jon Moxley is going to be stepping aside, and we will see Will Ospreay run with being the center of a promotion that Tony will build around, and then future feuds and future heels around Will Ospreay. He will be their Cody Rhodes after July. But in order to get there, you got to beat Hangman. And I know, Hangman has shown himself to be a very adaptable performer.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very impressed with the way he can take on an opponent like Bryan Danielson and have a technical match, or he can go, hardcore with Swerve Strickland. Obviously, he's had a classic match with Moxley where, Moxley is all blood and guts. And so that would be a good contest. But I do think that, again, just like with the Monet situation, let's go ahead and plan out and book our big show in July. That's going to be having the Owen Hart champion being Will Ospreay.
Yep.
Doug, that leaves us with one. And because of the nature of this match, I do think that it is the one that will end the whole show. So let me just, because it's so many people, let me get it out. The Anarchy in the Arena match will be Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, Willow Nightingale, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Katsuyori Shibata versus Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Marina Shafir, Wheeler Yuta, and the Young Bucks. That is a whole lot of stars in one match.
That's a whole lot of people.
Doug, maybe before we even say who we think is going to win, should we even say whether this match should even be happening? I'm sorry. I'm just a little bit burned out on the multi-person anarchy, anything goes. Let's see what clever backstage skits we can pre-record kind of matches.
Yeah. I'm not the first one was fun. But the subsequent ones have been not so fun. And then, we talk multi-person, like big multi-person matches, and uh, uh, things just start to go sideways for AEW. You have like top stars running around on bicycles, whacking people like they're clowns on unicycles and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, because this one will have to go because of the number of people involved. This will be a 30,
Mhm.
40-minute match, which
Yep.
means you're going to have a ton of risk taking, people maybe taking risks they shouldn't. You're going to have a ton of probably overly booked spots, some of which may be so
Mhm.
overly booked that they were actually pre-filmed. And
Yep.
then, like you said, it's 40 minutes. So you have to have your elements of comedy. So someone will be on a unicycle. Somebody will, juggle some, bowling ball pins and smack somebody up the head with a rubber chicken. Or, I mean, they,
Yeah, it's gonna happen. And poor Wheeler Yuta is gonna be the one getting smacked with the rubber chicken across the face.
and maybe the one that's falling off of, something higher than he should be falling off of too.
Yes.
Um, John Moxley's involved, so somebody's going to be full of staples, and John himself will be bleeding like a stuck pig. And I mean,
He's
I hate
probably
to
somewhere
say that
he's bleeding right now somewhere, Kevin. Somewhere right now, he and Renee are sitting down for dinner and he's just pouring blood.
we just mentioned his name and he begins to bleed.
Yes.
I'm not going to say it's not going to be entertaining. Every one of these has had moments where you will chuckle or you'll go, "Oh my gosh, maybe the what wow," or "Wow, should they have done that?" Wow.
Uh-huh.
But at the end of the day, we've seen this variety of match from AEW so many times that even if it is good, and because of the people involved, I don't doubt that it could be good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what do they ever mean and accomplish? We all like sign off on the pay-per-view, and within weeks we won't even remember who wins this one.
Mm-hmm. Because what are the stakes for this at the end of it?
None. So that makes it a little hard to predict since there really is nothing at stake. But just for the fact that I feel like they'll want to send people home happy, and we do need to see the we already see the fracture in the Death Riders. So I would say that the heels take the L in this one. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It's probably poor Wheeler after, taking the chicken to the face.
Taking it where Willie gets pinned by Willow after a chicken to the face.
Something along those lines. Do
Yeah.
you have a strong feeling one way or the other on this one?
I, I, I hate to say it because this makes our show so boring, but damn it, I agree with you. I mean, it's it's time for the Death Riders to not be Death Rider anymore. They're not the bloodline. We can't have like a 4-year run with them.
Yeah.
Uh, We we uh, we need to start breaking this unit up.
And I do think that this is a good first. I mean, not a good. It's just the first step of
Yeah.
where they're probably going with it, because I do think that by summer, John Moxley will be separated from his world title and probably take some well-deserved time off.
Yep.
So we have to start the house falling down, and this would be one way of doing that.
Yeah.
Let's hope no one gets hurt. That's the main thing.
Hmm.
In all of the anarchy.
In the arena.
With that, Doug, we have successfully predicted 8 matches, 7 of which we agree on. But hey, what can we say? I have a
What
feeling
can we
that
say?
for those of you that choose that over the free NXT pay-per-view, which has some amazing matches too, we don't have time to preview all those. But if you do end up picking AEW on Sunday night, let's see how many of these we get correct. If you feel differently about how this is going to go, drop that in the comments and let us know where we have it wrong in your opinion. Doug, with that, let's hit that big finish.
So
Watch of the week.
I'm gonna call it on this that broke over my phone earlier with WWE moving uh, WrestleMania 26, just snatching it away from NOLA like that. To we according to what I've pulled, it may be going back to Vegas, but it could easily be going
Regardless,
to
it's not.
yeah,
Yeah, regardless, it's not going to New Orleans, which is
right, where people were probably already. I mean, this is WrestleMania. You make plans in advance. They announce in advance for a reason, and
Yeah,
now people have got to pivot. I mean, but still, the city. The city sounds like it's going to be okay. They get a PLE, they get WrestleMania later, and it looks like they also get like a UFC event. So I guess the corporate overlords are trying to make good, and there's got to be language in the contracts like that has this contingency built in, so nothing's guaranteed, I guess. So,
it
but
just
still, it's
yeah,
it's
it,
not cool.
it's not cool, man.
It's just not cool,
As Carlito would say, not
right?
cool.
Not cool.
Not musical chairs with WrestleMania. I understand
Mm-mm.
like the bidding process. Play all this out behind the scenes and just hold off on announcing anything until you're certain. You don't
Hmm.
announce a WrestleMania and then unannounce a WrestleMania. That's
Right?
not great. Yeah, good choice for a botch. Again, breaking news that Doug reported on earlier tonight about that. For me, I actually had a different botch that than what I ended up going with. That's because, as you know, when we have these shows, I usually spend the immediate aftermath watching wrestling throughout the course of the week, taking my notes. And I had pretty much penciled in what I thought the botch was going to be because last week I didn't think anything would top it because Evolve, which I have been enjoying very much. Last week, Evolve featured Big Body Javier Bernal, as well as all three members of Gallus, who all won. Both Javi and then Gallus won, despite the fact that all of four of these men were released weeks ago. Which, again, that is just kind of, it shows that how much pre-filming they do to get a bunch of Evolve episodes in the can, obviously. But it's
Mm-hmm.
really bad when you have ongoing storylines and guys going over who have been very publicly let go from your company weeks before. I thought that there's nothing that could beat that as a botch as far as bad optics. And then AEW production comes along and says, "Hey, WWE, hold my
You
beer."
don't need you don't need that last half hour. You don't need that.
Man, during the most recent collision, if you were watching on the East Coast, like Doug and I do, your feed went out with 30 minutes left to go in the show. So no main event, no big angle. All of that was missing from your version of the broadcast. To make matters worse and more embarrassing for AEW, instead of you were seeing their main event, that they ended up watching a movie starring The Rock, which I'm sure WWE just had to have a great laugh over. The company obviously apologized for what it called technical difficulties and went on to say that, the West Coast feed is going to be fine, air in full later. We will have the whole thing on Max for you later on tonight. As far as I know, the West Coast feed went fine. They did not, though, fulfill their promise to get it up on Max later that evening. In fact, 3 days afterwards, it still was not up on Max. I assume it probably is at this point, but at this point, who even cares? Collision's
So
on in like 20 minutes. So,
it's my understanding that the same thing happened to the West Coast.
oh, you're kidding me.
I have
Even
read
after they
that.
said it.
Yeah,
Well, all of
yeah,
it in total, one shows that, okay, your partnership with Max must not be as strong on the Max side as you think it is. If you're so of little importance to them
hmm,
that you promise we'll correct this and get it up on the platform, and 4 days later, your corporate
right.
daddies are still ignoring you, apparently. You're low on the pecking order of their priorities, obviously. And then
Hmm.
again, I mean, I know things happen, and I feel
Absolutely. I
bad
mean,
for Tony, and I feel bad for the company. But if you want to show the gulf between number one and number two and how wide it is, this just looked Bush League.
mhm.
And I mean, and then you make promises you can't fulfill, just doubling down on how Bush League it looked for AEW. Just embarrassing all the way around.
Yeah, all the talent and just so lacking in a lot of infrastructure still.
Yeah. Big differences between these two companies when it comes to those
Yeah.
very, very important things. Doug, how about performer or performance? What did you like that you saw this week?
Well, I really like the YouTube recap of Dynamite that I watched before we went on the air because that's the only wrestling I've had a chance to see this week, other than some like Wrestle Talk covering Zoe Starks and Stevie Richards. So kudos to Stevie Richards for pointing out to me exactly where everything went wrong with Zoe Starks and how it looks like she has torn everything in that knee. So Stevie Richards is a great performer. So.
He is. He
Uh,
does. He's
he,
very
he,
entertaining. He
he's,
does a good show. Yeah.
he really
Uh,
does. So that's about all I got right there.
So my performer of the week, I am going with Miles Bourne. Miles has been a surprising breakout from the ensemble crew that is the No Quarter Catch crew. He probably was the background character for most of the history of this faction, but here lately he has been pushed to the front and he is running with it. Now, all that said, he is surely about to get destroyed on Sunday by Obafemi. That's definitely happening. But it has been a nice showcase for Bourne, who had a very strong showing on Tuesday, which is why I'm giving him my performer of the week because he had a great promo exchange with Femi. And for those who don't watch NXT or maybe does not know this, but Bourne is deaf. He is, to my knowledge, I know of no other deaf professional wrestler that I can
Hmm.
recall in wrestling history. That fact, though, doesn't hold him back in the ring at all. And then where you think it could hold him back would be on the mic. But on Tuesday, he demonstrated in a confrontation with Femi a truly inspiring promo. He
Really
even made his obstacle that he had to overcome part of it, but talking about how
nice.
yes, I shouldn't be in this position because there was a time that even the coaches here in NXT probably doubted I would ever be in this position. The fans probably doubted. I never doubted. And for anyone who's different or maybe doesn't fit in or like
Oh,
just
that's
that kind of
good.
like, I'm like,
Yeah.
and all of it is building off something that's very real that he has had to overcome. And again, he is going to be destroyed by Obafemi, but it's
Yeah.
probably not the
Uh,
last time we see Miles Bourne highlighted because he's shown that he is deserving of that spot. Just really nice work that deserved to be called out.
cool.
Doug, I know you have only seen some recaps, so maybe you don't have a match of the week, but
I don't feel good calling a match of the week since I'm not fully I've not fully vetted all the candidates yet.
would you feel good enough to argue with me about my match of the week?
Sure, always feel good enough to argue with you, brother.
So for my match of the week, I'm going to pick something that has happened not this week per se, but it's been within 7 days, and it has been since our last live broadcast. And it is also something I never thought I would say, but one of my performers that had my match of the week is Nia Jax. So Doug, there you go. There's your bait that I'm giving you. But
No.
Tiffany Stratton, and Nia Jax on last week's SmackDown had a heck of a contest, and it takes two to tango. So as talented as Tiffy is, and it is Tiffy's time and was Tiffy's time, they had some very legit seeming heat in that because of their backstory. So part of the reason why it rose above some of the other great matches I've seen this week is just the fact that it seemed to be the blow off to that feud so that Tiffy can move on to bigger and better things. And credit where it's due. Nia held her own in this, played the big man spot well. She was the Andre to Tiffy's Hulk. I mean, you got to be the big obstacle for the underdog baby face to overcome. And there was one spot where legit, and again, I know that sometimes Nia can be a little rough, but she came down on Tiffy's chest from the top rope in a way that made it look like all involved may have really gotten hurt in it. It was kind of like the Charlotte Flair match though, in that there were spots that even when they didn't go well,
Mm.
it looked like two women really fighting that hate each other, which fit the story of this one. I have to recommend it, Doug. I know that neither of us are Nia Jax fans, but I'll give credit where it's due and say that this was a good match.
I'll just say this, like I've said about Daniel Bryan in the past, he could make me look good in the ring and really talented. So I'm giving all the credit here to Tiffy for that performance, and
Yeah.
and I love your brother, so that's all I'm going to say about it.
All righty. Fair enough. Go check that one out if for those of you who didn't see it from last week's SmackDown. And with that, we are
Really
actually we're done. And
on
with
time, under budget, and about 9 minutes before collision.
exactly, we're not being taken off the air early. We're actually done. So this is not a collision
Yes.
situation. We just happen to finish up. Let's hope that collision is able to finish up and tonight.
Or
Fingers
they start
crossed.
on time. There's
We will
always that.
see. It is the holiday weekend, and as we mentioned up at the top, we have a lot of pay-per-views happening this weekend and or big events. You have Saturday night's main event on NBC on Saturday, and then 2 pay-per-views for you to choose from on Sunday, including the one we just previewed in Double or Nothing. So have a good long weekend and Memorial Day weekend. As far as our next live broadcast, we'll be returning, Doug, to our normal night and time.
Oh,
So we should be well caught up with all the wrestling by then, and we won't
yes.
throw you by throwing you in the middle of the week on like a 7 o'clock
Don't
time.
like it. Don't like it.
But that is June 1st that we'll be back. And yes, there's still more pay-per-views, even with all the ones we've been talking about. June 1st, we will be previewing Money in the Bank because it'll be that time again.
Yes, it will.
Until then,
hey, go watch some wrestling. It's almost collision time. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.